Hey everyone, this is Nick Dierbertis teaching you financial modeling. Today I'm going to be answering some student questions regarding fin statement. So the first question that we have here is should we be worried about the data that did not get extracted in fin statement? So let's set up a simple example with fin statement so that we can take a look at that. So first thing that we'll need to do is let's load the statements with pandas. So import pandas as PD. And then from fin statement, going to import the financial statements, income statement, and balance sheet. Income statement. A little bit of a lag there. Financial statements, income statements, and balance sheets. And then we can load the income statement, Walmart income statement. I have in the same directory. Um, and we'll need to set the first column as the index. Okay. And now same thing for the balance sheet. We'll load that into a data frame. And now this is just balance sheet. Okay, that looks good as well. So now we can create the statement classes objects. So we'll have the income statement is equal to income statements from the data frame of the income data frame, and the balance sheet is balance sheet from data frame of the balance sheet data frame, and then finally the statements are going to be the financial statements of the um, income statement and the balance sheet. So this, now that we have our setup here, this first question again is asking about basically these messages that come up here about was not able to extract data from the following names, and should we be worried about that? So it is worth it to take a look over what those items are the first time that you load your statements in, just to make sure that it's not missing anything important. But hopefully, most of the data items you would need to use are already covered in the package. So when we look at some of these items, we're seeing a lot of basically calculated items, um, which are not actually part of the financial statement. So that's why they're not getting picked up. Lots of different margin calculations, the number of shares outstanding. So these are just various items which are not really part of the traditional financial statements, and that's why they're being excluded. Um, and in some case, items have other names which are getting used. Like you can see, EBITDA was not loaded here, but that's because operating income should already be there. So you can also just look at statements and see what you have. Um, and we can see um, that we um, have the data that we need loaded in here. So I think just check over what names are not getting loaded and check over the data which is being loaded, and make sure that there's not anything that's missing here that you do actually have in your financial statements. So on to the next question. Could you show fin statement being used with xlwings? Yeah, certainly. So that is very similar here. I mean, ultimately, we're just passing data frames into fin statement. So any way that we can make a data frame, we can then load that into fin statement. And so as long as we can get back to this same kind of structure where we have the statement items on the index and the dates as the column headers, it doesn't matter how that was originally loaded in. So we can import xlwings, and then we can get a reference to the income statement book. So that's going to be xw.book of the Walmart income statement. And then need to take a look at what's actually in there for targeting the sheet. So we can see it's a Walmart sheet. WMT is the sheet name. So I'm going to say income statement sheet is the income statement book sheets Walmart. And then we want to basically get everything here. But my initial instinct would be to start from here and expand, but the top left cell is blank, so I'm not certain whether that's going to work, but we can give it a try. So range A1 dot expand dot options p dot data frame. And this is going to be income df, and we need to pick the value of that. So what do we get there? That did work. Okay, that's great. Yeah, now basically this looks the same as the one we had loaded in before. So let's do the same thing with the balance sheet as well. Here for the balance sheet, we're trying to match that. We can do the same kind of thing on the balance sheet. And this would be balance sheets. And this would be the balance sheet PDF. Give that a shot. And then look at that, and looks like we got the same thing loaded in there. So this would go here instead of where we have it being loaded in via Pandas right now. So then we can run all that, and it should, it looks like it's loading everything into fin statement properly. So we'll just look at what the resulting statements are to confirm that that worked correctly. But yeah, basically any way that you can create that data frame with the index as the statement items and the columns as the dates, it'll be able to be loaded into fin statement. So even if you're just manually creating that data frame, or it's coming from some other source, that will work as fine. That will work fine as well. It's as long as you can match that structure, it'll work. So yeah, now we can see the statements are loaded in. We're seeing the same thing here as when we had used the pandas approach. Next is the copy function only in fin statement? So this is referring to that in fin statement we can do statements.copy. And now we have a second set of statements which have the same thing. And I can go and I can update, say, for revenue, I want to change the forecast method. Sorry, forecast config. I want to change the method to the average approach. Now when I look at the forecast assumptions, we can see that revenue has gone to the mean here. But if we look at the original statements, that was unaffected by the changes that we made. So this is a nice way to be able to do multiple different forecasts with the same financial statements object. You just copy it and make whatever forecast adjustments, run your forecast, analyze the result as needed, and then for the next configuration, it just copies it again and makes whatever changes. So the question is actually asking though, is this just a feature of finstatement or can we do that elsewhere? So there are a number of different um, libraries as well as some built-in features of Python which support the dot copy method. So another good example is Pandas supports it. We have this income data frame. We can do income data frame dot copy and we get a copy of it, and any changes that we make this copy are not going to affect the original. So same exact kind of thing. An example with just built-in Python, you can actually do that with a list. So my list is say 1, 2, 3. Second list is my list.copy. Then you can append to that. And then we'll see that the original list was not affected, but the second list is affected. So that's there as well. Now, say that you encounter some object in Python that you want to copy and it does not have a dot copy method. What can you do? How can you copy it? So there is actually a module in Python built into every Python installation that's made for copying objects. So if you do from copy, import deep copy, then this deep copy can be used in place of the copy method on an object. So I'm going to do deep copy of the list there instead of dot copy. And we'll see that we get the exact same result whenever my system wants to resolve. That will show up with 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can do that with any object in Python. So actually that was what I recommended people do. There we go. With finstatement. Before I added the dot copy method, just do a deep copy. And you can do that with anything in Python. So copy is supported in a number of different places, but if it's not, then just use deep copy instead. Next question is, could you give an example of how to take specific values out of finstatement? For example, the revenue for the third forecasted period. So a nice thing about finstatement is while you do have these custom classes for the financial statements, the income statement, the balance sheet, it's made to be very compatible with other workflows in that when you access statement items, you actually get a pandas series. So when we do statements.revenue, you can see we get that out of it, all those different values. If we check the type of this, what we have is a pandas series. And so anything that you can do with a series, you can do with the statement item from finstatement. So, we've looked previously in the course how we can index on series and data frames. So here, this would be getting the last value out. This would be getting the first value out. And then if you have a certain date in mind, you can grab that date and uh, do .loc, and that will allow you to pull out a certain date. Um, so yeah, through those methods, you can pull whichever value you want. Another thing which may be useful for you is if you don't want to work with series, all series can be converted into lists. So just do .toList on the end, and then you have a list of values. And a lot of people are more comfortable working with lists than they are with series. So you have that, and then you can do all the same indexing stuff that you can normally do with lists. So number of different ways to pull out individual items, but the key factor there is that it's just a pandas series, so anything that works in pandas is going to work here as well. And the last question here is, how can I see the effects of adjusting the financial statements manually? So this is talking about um, in the forecasting approach. So after we do a forecast, then we can adjust the results of that forecast. So let me quickly look at the forecast assumptions. So we can go ahead and run the forecast. Statements.forecast. Let's just do 2 periods here. Then we can look at the forecasted statements. And we can look at the plot of those. So we see all different forecasts there. And what this question is referring to is the fact that we can adjust one of the existing or any of the existing forecasts to add other adjustments. So forecast dot forecast, and then we would grab whatever we want to adjust. Let's say we have, what's the key there? Retained earnings. So we can pull out the retained earnings forecast and do to manual. And then in the to manual method, we can pass the adjustments or replacements. So I'm going to here adjust, and let's just say we want the first forecasted period to grow by 40%. And that didn't work. Oh, we do have to put same length as their number of periods, so not adjusting the second period. So now we can take a look and plot the retained earnings forecast. And whereas you can see before, it was just kind of, very slight curve, but basically straight line. Now when we look at it, we see that we have this big jump here, and this is our 40% adjustment that we made. So now that has jumped way up here, and then it goes back to no adjustment. So it's going to take the growth that it had forecasted before and now apply that for the final period. So you can see it increases just ever so slightly here. And you should be able to also see that in the statement view as well. So now when we look at the retained earnings, jumps to 78 million there. Whereas in the statements, we can go back to the statements, the last retained earnings here was, okay, so it's not showing there some reason. That is interesting. Um, um, I think it's because you need to actually run the forecast again to see it make its way into the statements. Yeah, there we go. Now we had the big growth in the first period, and then smaller, more normal growth in the second period. Um, and we should be able to see that in the plot as well. So after you do your adjustment, you will be able to see it in the plot, but you got to actually run a second forecast in order to have that come into the financial statements. So now we can see that there in the plot, and also sorry, forecasts 2, and we can see that in the actual values there as well. So that's all the questions that I had for today on FinStatement. Thank you for the students who submitted those questions, and I will see you next time.